And the warrior is complex because along with the capacity for violence, the warrior symbolizes strength, security, and self-determination. Security is necessary for survival as autonomy is necessary for flourishing. Our needs and desires for security are not trivial or benign, but military-style policing and other forms of police brutality irrevocably undermine the fundamental trust in law that's necessary for democracy. Where the law itself systematically undermines the people's sense of security, there's a crisis in democracy. This world requires warriors, but where are the warrior protectors, the warrior resistors, who do not require the counterpoint of woman as weakness, who do not romanticize or worship violence, who do not consider war to be law and law to be an excuse for more war? In September 2001, many Americans learned that what felt like peace was not so simple, and that there are many places around the world where people feel they are at war with the U.S. In some versions of this war, anti-American rhetoric is used to promote fundamentalism and to curtail the flowering of human freedom in the same ways that violent fundamentalists in the U.S. use xenophobia to rally their own sheep-like troops. But the seeds of violent anti-American sentiment have also been sown through the exploitative and brutalizing effects of American interests themselves. As Palestinian activists are fond of saying, when you're attacked with weapons that say, made in the USA, how can you not regard the US as an enemy? Yet the extent to which you feel that you are at war depends on your proximity to war, and proximity can be a matter of physical or affective distance. War is partially a matter of consciousness. How many Americans felt we were at war while our tax dollars were funding the Contras in Nicaragua in the 80s? Who felt we were at war during the O.J. Simpson trial? Who feels that we are at war now? The U.S. is a war innovator, a culture that dedicates so much of its resources to the business of waging war cannot help but be a war innovator, because an economy that depends on weapons production and military supremacy must be obsessed with the continual improvement of war making. The Center for Defense Information, a nonpartisan organization founded by former military personnel, reports that the U.S. military spends about $600,000 every minute, not while we're at war, when we're not at war, doing business with top defense contractors, including Lockheed Martin, Boeing Douglas, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, Carlyle Group, and General Electric. When American political leaders are major stockholders in those corporations, foreign and military policies are driven by the myth that war is good for the economy. Romantic conceptions of science and the pure pursuit of knowledge are dashed to bits when one notices how closely science and industry are related to military interests and agendas. According to the National Science Foundation, in 2002, over half of the federal government's $99 billion research and development budget was spent on national defense. Research on natural resources and the environment got just over 2%. Space research and technology received 9%, and health-related research received about 24%. When war is serious business, it's profitable to pursue scientific projects that receive military funding. The development of nearly any form of military technology or intelligence can be justified or promoted, no matter how evil, expensive, or ineffective it might be. When the production of war is at the heart of an economy, it is war that feeds progress. So progress moves in the direction of war. Do you want to be a war innovator or an innovator of something else? The Philosopher Queen on War. The Philosopher Queen was sitting on her Brooklyn fire escape in shorts and a down jacket in the middle of October. It was a beautiful fall day, and the yellow reds of the brick buildings spoke to the colors of the leaves. But the air was too cold, and her calves were in contact with metal. She thought eating might calm her, and right now she was nervously seeking calm. She brought the phone and a stale piece of PBJ toast with her when she climbed out of the window. Her heart was still beating too fast, and the toast felt like pasty cardboard in her mouth. Nothing seemed very fun these days. She'd sometimes feel happy around other people, but then she'd brood or get to worrying alone. And weird things kept happening, like just before, when she was working at the computer. There was a strong smell, unusual and pungent, like gas or something. The smell was so powerful, and the stove wasn't on. It must be a chemical attack. Her heart started pounding. She could feel it in her temples as she ran to the window to see if the children in the playground were running to safety, or retching, or keeling over. If there had been some kind of chemical attack, the people in the street would be reacting. The people in the street seemed just fine. Was it just in her apartment? Was it gone? Had it gotten stronger? Was she being gassed? But who would want to kill her? She sniffed again. She did have a headache. Air. I just need some air, as she opened the window and took a deep breath. Then she grabbed her coat and climbed out. When had things gotten so strange? She had never been a worrywart before. Would things ever get back to normal? And why all this sudden interest in normalcy from a weirdo like her? The great philosophers argued about justifications for entering into war and over appropriate activities within war. The primary philosophical question about war, since wars seem to be inevitable, is about when it's just to enter into military conflicts against other states, or in hindsight to evaluate the morality of wars and military actions. War, then, must be an isolated, definable event with clear boundaries. Those boundaries distinguish the circumstances in which standard moral rules and constraints, such as rules against murder and unprovoked violence, no longer apply. That is why the great philosophers stress the importance of good decision-making before wars occur, before the initiation of such special moral events. But what if war is a pervasive presence in nearly all contemporary life? Many questions about war can't be addressed by an approach that sees war as an event, because war is not just an event. When we think of war as an event, we can only see the need for crisis-based politics and analyses. Then, when the war seems to be over, there's no longer a need for a movement for peace. A movement against war is a movement against violence, and so requires sustained resistance to the omnipresent violences in our lives. In a previous season, in the same land, but in a very different land, PQ wrote, "Los Alamos is burning." The fire was started on purpose by the National Park Service, a controlled burn that is raging completely out of control over a huge expanse of high desert that includes the lab on the hill.